This is a study vlog on John Steinbeck's Of Mice and Men, and I'm in chapter 3 today, and I'm going to look a little bit more about the dream. So from the very start of the novel, the dream is something that Lennie and George aspire towards, the idea of having their own farm and their own land, and not being migrant workers anymore. Now in chapter 3, while Candy is still in the bunkhouse, having just lost his dog, George and Lennie begin to talk about the dream at Lennie's instigation. And George develops this idea a bit more from what we'd seen snatches of back in chapter 1. George paints such a vivid picture of building a smokehouse, catching salmon and having it for breakfast, canning tomatoes, having a rich harvest, cutting the cream off from the milk with a knife. Lennie repeats key phrases like, "We could live off of the fat of the land." And of course these kind of phrases are really well worn in America, because this whole phrase of living off the fat of the land, the idea that you have your own bit of land and it sustains you, you get everything you need from it, all your food, everything. That's really the essence of the American dream. And George says, "We'd just live there, we'd belong there. There wouldn't be no more running around the country." And I think there's that, the heart there is of the men's desire to put down roots and anchor themselves and to have meaning and significance in the world. Because as long as they're migrant workers moving from farm to farm, they're anonymous. No one knows them, no one cares about them, and they just blend in with 100 other men. Now Candy's been listening into this description and asks George, "You know where there's a place like that?" Now there's kind of an irony in this question, because whilst George does have in his mind a specific farm that they've been hankering after for a long time, in another sense this dream is a universal dream, and this place could be any place. And Candy says that. He says, "You don't need to tell me where it's at, might be any place." But then Candy starts getting excited when he asks George how much they want for a place like that. And George says, $600. Candy says, "I ain't much good with only one hand. I lost my hand right here on this ranch. That's why they give me the job, swamping. They give me $250 because I lost my hand. I got 50 more saved up right in the bank, right now. That's 300. I got 50 more coming the end of the month. Tell you what, suppose I went in with you guys. That's $350 I'd put in. I ain't much good, but I could cook and tend the chickens and hoe the garden some. How'd that be?" Now suddenly what happens is a recalibration of everything they've been thinking. George kind of initially says, "Well, we was always going to do it by ourselves." But suddenly he begins to think, wow, Candy's actually got some good money saved up here. He says, "I'd make a will and leave my share to you guys in case I kick off, because I ain't got no relatives nor nothing. You guys got any money?" And so George says, "We got $10 between us. Look, if me and Lennie work a month and don't spend nothing, we'll have $100. That'd be $450. I bet we could swing her for that. Then you and Lennie could go get her started, and I'd get a job and make up the rest, and you could sell eggs and stuff like that." They fell into a silence. They looked at one another amazed. This thing they had never really believed in was coming true. So suddenly Candy's offer of putting in $450 means that they could really begin to make a serious offer on this farm. They could actually make it a reality. And suddenly the tone of the narrative shifts into this kind of hope of like, wow, they might actually be able to make a difference. You know, the three guys together. At this point, we start to think that this dream is actually going to become a reality. One of the reasons that Candy's so keen to be involved is because of what's just happened with his dog. And on one level, obviously, he's devastated to lose the dog, but also he says this: "When they can me here, I wish somebody'd shoot me. They won't do nothing like that. I won't have no place to go, and I can't get no more jobs." So this is the thing for Candy. He's staring down the barrel of the rest of his life thinking, what's going to happen to me? You know, they're going to shoot my dog, but I'm going to be left cast out with no prospects and nothing to do. And so even if he's just doing small menial jobs on this little farm, he says, I'll be on our own place and I'll be let to work on our own place. He'll have a sense of security, a sense of belonging that he doesn't have in this ranch. We're seeing how important this dream becomes not only to George and Lennie, but to Candy too, as a hope for the future in the wake of just losing his best friend, basically, in the form of his dog. But we're also going to see how the idea of a dream affects nearly all the characters in some way or another. Curly's wife has a dream of being in the movies, in the pictures. Other characters are going to have their own dreams too. And so this theme in the novel becomes really important because it shows how people aspire to move beyond their circumstances. And in 1930s America, life is hard. Life is pretty brutal for these guys, and the dream is something that keeps them going.
Hit subscribe if you'd like to follow my vlog for more updates on teaching, reading and studying.